All right, 6:30 PM, we'll call to order the Safety and Public Works Committee meeting, January 17th, 2023 in council chambers. We have 6 items on the agenda tonight. I think 3 of them should be fairly quick, 4 of them, or 3 of them might consider a little bit more discussion. But if we want to start off with number 1, the approval of an event application for March for Life, MCCL. Mr. Dean, I think that's you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So this one's pretty simple. It's the annual March for Life walk event along South 6th and Laurel Streets. They generally start at Oak Street at that strip mall, and then they end at the county courthouse. They only need a short lane closure that police is going to assist them with. And I did get notification that MnDOT did approve the lane closure application for the highway segment. So other than that, we're just looking for approval on this. I don't know if it's been brought to the council before, but it's a pretty regular event.
I don't remember it before, but I know I've watched this event go past my window while I've been working multiple times. So I know it's happened before, and I don't think it's ever caused an issue, so.
Is this, did you say you're still waiting for approval from somebody? Did I miss that?
Motion.
No, we have gotten approval from MnDOT
Okay.
for the highway portion.
Okay, I move to approve this, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, motion is to approve the attached application as shown, provided MnDOT approves the lane closure, which they did. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Same sign, motion passes. All right. You might want to turn yours on there. Second item is the OSHA grant application for the Public Works Building Gate and Operator. Mr. Dean, if you want to go through this one too.
Yes, sir. So in the 2018 facility study, they recommended to address some security issues over at the Public Works facility on Thesey. So IT has budgeted for door access that's going to secure the building. However, the gate into the facility, it stays open throughout the day with minimal attention. Obviously, our crews are generally out doing work and not at the facility. So to secure the site, we're recommending a gate operator to allow for controlled access into and out of the facility. Back last September, we received 2 quotes for that work to replace the gate with a single gate and to install an operator. Oberg was the low quote at $18,000 and change. OSHA has a grant program that helps address workplace safety issues that can fund up to $10,000 of that cost. So if you put a modest bump for inflation, we're anticipating the 2023 cost for that to be roughly at $20,000. Staff included $10,000 in the 2023 budget to cover the local cost if we do get the OSHA grant for the $10,000.
Ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
So if it comes in more than 20,000, include, with the grant, and it's more, their bid is higher, do we just cover that out of a general fund, or?
Yeah, we would
Okay.
find a different funding source.
And then the 16 remotes, they're just one for each employee?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be between street and parks. Maybe I would have one to be able to access the facility.
Okay.
It would just be whoever needs to be in and out of there.
You should have one. Just my opinion.
I can break in.
I move to approve that staff apply for the OSHA safety grant.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. On to the third item. This is a review of the Brainerd City Code Section 2014.05, noise-related issues for outdoor power equipment and snow removal. And I believe this is Mr. Kramvik.
That's correct. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. So this winter has already seen a significant snowfall total in Brainerd. So due to the frequency and the amount of snow, the city has experienced an increase in complaints regarding noise generated by snow removal, particularly from 2 properties. I'll just kind of reiterate here what the city code states. So within 500 feet of any residentially zoned property, no person may operate any power equipment, including but not limited to electric or powered equipment such as lawnmowers, hedge clippers, chainsaw trimmer, bug zapper, or other designed primarily for outdoor use at any other time between the hours of 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. on public holidays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So all equipment shall be effectively muffled as to prevent the emission of loud and explosive noises that disturb the peace, quiet, or repose of a person or persons of ordinary sensibility. So I would like to note in regards to snow removal that staff does interpret snow plows as something other than power equipment since they are attached to motor vehicles and would fall more under the motor vehicle ordinance, which doesn't have, I guess, time constraints on them. So plowing separately, this would be more snow blowers as well as leaf blowers is kind of as well as power brush attachments potentially to John Deere tractor equipment. I think those have been some of the main complaints. So with this, staff does currently see a few problems with this ordinance. Schools open their doors typically around 7 a.m. So even in a 3 to 4 inch snowfall, it does make it problematic to get the schools ready, parking lots plowed, sidewalks cleared for kids and kids' safety as well as the employees there. Also, there's many businesses in our commercial zones, especially along Washington Street and kind of the outer perimeter of downtown, such as gas stations, that would be within the 500 feet of these residentially zoned districts. As you know, gas stations will typically open, maybe around 5:30, 6:30 a.m. So it does, and cafes, maybe around that time as well. So certainly a potential impact to the businesses. So with that, staff believes this ordinance is appropriate for lawn care and construction, but there should be an exemption for power equipment for the purposes of snow removal. So with this, staff recommends drafting an ordinance amendment that exempts power equipment for the purposes of snow removal from Chapter 20, Section 2014.05, Outdoor Power Equipment of the City Code. We certainly answer any questions.
Excellent. So obviously, snow plowing has been an issue this year. I actually did receive one of these complaints from the other side, from one of the snowplow company workers, wondering how they're supposed to get this stuff done in time. So you got to see it from both perspectives. And I told them, and they kind of agreed that, leaf blowers and loud snow blowers are one thing, but when you're running a plow trying to clear a parking lot, you're running a truck. It's not usually making as much noise. So that's kind of the way I saw it. This amendment, though, you're talking about all power equipment. You're talking about those leaf blowers and the snow blowers being able to be used no matter what time?
Yeah, I am proposing that as staff, just because of sidewalk safety and these businesses needing, those sidewalks to be cleared for potential customers to prevent any slipping and make them accessible, essentially for everybody. So if a school is needing to open at 7 a.m. with only an amount of 3 inches of snow, it's not a snow emergency, but those sidewalks, definitely would need to be cleared before and start much before 6:30 in order to get that done prior to school opening.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think the safety of the kids around the schools, people walking around parking lots at any of the commercial zones, I think would appreciate this. I can see it from the residents' perspective close by as well. But it doesn't snow year-round, and it typically doesn't snow every day, day after day after day. There's no wood to knock on up here.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I would move that we move forward with the recommendation of staff on this.
Do you want a motion on it?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second to move forward. That would exempt power equipment for the purposes of snow removal from Chapter 20, Section 2014-05, Outdoor Power Equipment of the City Code. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on to the fourth item. This is discussion of the streetlight policy. Mr. Dean, if you want to give us an update.
Yes, sir. So you have the memo that's included in the packet. So this is just some updates on some of the remaining items on the streetlight policy that so far we've received. First, light throwing direction. So council requested some visuals to understand the lighting direction better. So included in the packet are some comparisons. So generally the two before and after photos show an example that could be compared to the existing with little or no control. So that's kind of the left photo is little or no control. So you see how it just illuminates in all directions pretty evenly. Just driving up here to this meeting, you'll notice that on Washington considerably, or not Washington, South 6th, that light goes everywhere equally, really illuminating a lot of the homes. pretty brightly on their front side. The right side of these before and after pictures is more indicative of a 100% light throw forward with 0 thrown back. So you can see in the photo that behind the fixture, it's nearly pitch black. So that's just an example of the control the new lighting fixtures can provide. The last picture does show an example that you could view as roughly 80-20 like we've discussed before. So most of the light does go into the intersection, but very little lighting goes backwards and only for a few feet. Sean, you want to scroll down to the next one really quick for me? Perfect. Most of that lighting is in the intersection. Very little goes back. This one's a little tough because the sidewalk's actually essentially right under the fixture, but if you can imagine that sidewalk being about 5 feet back, it would still see just a little bit of illumination. The other thing you'll notice here is none of the light encroaches on the nearby home behind the fixture. And that's kind of the intent of the 80-20 is to try and keep all that light where it's supposed to be and not beaming on people's homes. So that was one update. Second was color temperature. So staff did host a work group to discuss the lighting temperature, and it was just widely accepted that there's a desire to explore a 3,000 Kelvin standard throughout the city. Just a reminder that 3,000 Kelvin is generally the softer white, whereas the current 4,000 Kelvin standard is more like a daylight color. And then finally, the last update that we had as of the packet was the residential cost for new fixtures and poles. So we received updates from the supplier on pricing as the new standards that the city council approved. We discussed the significant increases that we've seen in the prices over 2022 at the last meeting. So the pricing for the new standards for the residential are roughly $3,400 per pole. Since poles for the new and old standard both it's the same pole, so they rose together. The true increase from going from the old standard to the new standard is about $425 per installation. So I included the calculations for the North Brainerd and South Brainerd reconstruction projects. Those are all in the memo. I'm not going to reread through all of those. So finally, what is not included in the memo is some updates that we received this afternoon regarding the commercial poles, banners, and outlets. Similar to residential, a significant cost increase throughout 2022 for the new commercial standard. So the new standard would cost over $5,000 per installation versus about $3,300 for the previous style. The difference is mainly due to the significant increase for the fixture. So last spring, when it was decided to go with the Epic fixture, that the commercial fixture, it was presented as about a $700 cost. That dollar amount is about $1,700 now per
Excuse
fixture.
me, what was it before?
Roughly $700 if I remember from what I looked at in the previous discussions in spring.
And now it's 1,700?
Correct. So that's just for the fixture increase. The other issue is we also have to include about a $370 adapter for the new fixture because the new fixture hangs down, whereas the current standard hangs out. You can kind of see how they essentially protrude from the mast arm. They almost hang horizontally and then shine the light down. The new fixture hangs down, and because of that difference between how it's mounted, you need to have an adapter to change that mounting direction. So that's about a $370 cost. So that's just the biggest parts of the increase between the two, the old standard versus the new standard. Banner poles, they're going to cost roughly $1,200 more per pole to be able to outfit them for banners, and that's just because you have to increase the structural strength of the pole itself to be able to handle the additional wind loading and the weight of those banners. So it's about $1,200 per pole to outfit them with banners. And then finally, the outlets are about $500 a pole. Since I didn't receive the information until this afternoon, I really didn't have time to organize the data, but I'll properly present it at the next meeting with some calculations of Washington Street 210, that reconstruction project, and what the kind of cost would be for old standard versus new standard. So as of right now, I'm just requesting general council approval of the light throwing direction and the color temperature standards.
Okay. I mean, it seems like we've pretty much knocked out everything in the residential section. It's all the commercial stuff that has now gone up astronomically compared to what we were at last year at this time. And I remember sending it back multiple times because light fixtures were expensive. When we would look into one, it'd be too expensive. We'd say, no, find a different one. And we might have to do that again.
We could definitely reach out to the supplier and see if there's another alternative. However, even the old commercial ones, now they did go up, but not even close to that much. I believe they went up from like about 290 to about 350 per fixture. So those went up. I mean, if you think about the percentage, a considerable amount too, but it was not 700 to 1,700. That is an incredible increase.
Did they give you a reason for that other than just it's inflation? Because we're not seeing 140% inflation.
I did not get a reason for that one.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk more about that as we get further along in this.
So on these directional, if that better, lack of a better term maybe, once you set those, can they be adjusted after that? Or are they just that's a hard fix, that's a hard install? That's nothing changes once that's put in there?
Generally, no.
The 80/20?
Yeah, generally, no. We would order fixtures specifically for that, and then it's just a matter of how you mount them and making sure you mount them in the right direction. Obviously, if you mount them backwards, you're going to see 80% going towards the house and 20%
right
to
away.
the street. So it's just, obviously, our staff has to be correct in which direction they mount it, but no, they generally wouldn't.
Is there ever a time when the property owner may want more light?
What we would recommend if a property owner wants one, BPU does have a security light policy that they can work with BPU to install a security light at their property if they
I
wish.
guess what I'm asking, if there's a current street light there at the property, and it's affecting a property now, we change it to this and it gives them less light than they're used to and they want to have that similar amount of light, is that something we can make accommodate that if they preferred to have more light than what we're taking light away with this 80/20?
I think if I can answer that, when we started going through this, probably a year and a half ago.
Most people didn't want light.
Well, most people don't want light in their yard, but there were people asking for specific poles to have lights put on them because it would give them essentially their driveway would light up. And there was multiple requests like that, even though about a decade or a little more than that ago, we had eliminated a lot of streetlights just to cut back on cost during the recession and everything. So rewriting this whole street lighting code, one of the issues was that, minimizing the amount of light that we do put off, and spreading them out further. It drops the amount of lights that we actually put up. But like Jesse said, if they do want lights, it sounds like two options. One, you can get the utility pole with BPU, which I assume they're going to pay for, or have a light installed in your yard. It's kind of a residential issue there. Our job is to light the streets.
Right.
Those are public right of way. So
I would move to approve the recommendation for these two items. The, was it the directional lighting and the, what was the other one?
The
Color
color
temperature.
Colors. Yeah.
Second.
motion and a second. Are we looking for just direction on the light fixture at this point, or you want that included in part
commercial?
of the motion?
For the commercial
residential.
pole or the residential? So if you're willing to go ahead and just kind of affirm the intention that we are going to follow street light policy
'Cause it's
as
already-
it's currently written for future reconstructions.
So we don't need to add that in.
I don't think so. I think it's currently written in the policy as just intersections according to the spacing. So you'll see, like it's written in the memo, a reduction in the amount of poles on those projects.
Okay. All right, motion and a second. Any more discussion, any questions, anybody? Okay, move to a vote, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. On to the next item. Item number 5, we have a summary of the 2022 code enforcement cases. Mr. Kramvik, this is you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff is presenting a summary of 2022 code enforcement cases that were brought before Safety and Public Works for review and direction. An entire list was included in the attachment. So Ordinance 1524 was adopted on April 4th, 2022, which amended Section 320, Administrative Citations of the City Code. The amendment provided specific guidance for the manner in which code enforcement shall be conducted, the fines for violations of the code, and the timeline by which violations of the code shall be corrected. So since the adoption of ordinance number 1524, the city of Brainerd has moved to a complaint-based enforcement policy for violations of the property maintenance code as well as the zoning code. As opposed to in years past, typically we have either our code compliance inspector within the city or an intern drive around from property to property to look for it. So that was also a change, is that we moved to a complaint-based enforcement policy. So I'll just kind of give a brief overview of how the procedure works based on the amendments and what we've been doing in the past year. So once the city receives a call from a concerned resident, the code compliance inspector investigates the site and determines whether a violation of the code has occurred. If the property is in violation of a code, a notice of violation is sent to the owner of the property with a 10-day order to correct letter. Most violations within the zoning code are 30. However, most property maintenance, except for like roofs and siding, are 10 days. So there is some discrepancies with that. That's not a citation. That's just a notice of violation. So if the property owner has not corrected the issue with that notice of violation, the owner receives a $100 citation, then a $200, then a $300 citation, essentially every 10 days after that. So if the property still remains uncorrected, it is then brought before SPW for review and recommendation, kind of for a multitude of options, either abatement, legal action, additional citations, or potentially no further action. So within this past year, we had a number of recommendations for abatement. If that is the recommendation of City Council, staff works with the City Attorney's Office to obtain a search warrant to abate the property. This past year, the city obtained warrants to remove junk and debris from properties, removed a dead tree from private property, removed garbage and trash, as well as the towing of vehicles and trailers. So this property has allowed the city to clean up sites that would have otherwise continued to receive citations. In the past and in our past code, essentially a property could be maxed out for each violation for $2,000, which would essentially amount to 20 citations, and then once it reached that, essentially would stop for the year and the violation would not be corrected. So this new enforcement policy has certainly expedited and taken care of some of those issues that we've had in the city, problem properties that have junk and debris and vehicles that weren't tabbed. So it has certainly been beneficial with that. I would say the challenge with the ordinance, kind of upon staff recommendation, is that a few of the violations that were previously dealt with much sooner under the code took a little bit longer. So these violations included primarily long grass. In our past code, we would typically, there'd always be the notice of violation, a $100 citation, and then immediate abatement from staff. If it continued, it would be a citation and then abatement. So the grass ones were being taken care of faster, as well as some of the garbage ones as well. It wouldn't have to go through council approval for that abatement. I would say the junk and debris has sites that would not have been cleaned up. Like I said earlier, those were cleaned up, so that was something that was beneficial to neighbors, and they were happy about that. So with that, I do have a few discussion topics here for Safety and Public Works to consider as potential recommended code language amendment. So one of the questions, does SPW need to review and recommend abatement regarding lawn mowing, garbage, and sidewalk snow removal? So I did want to note that garbage is distinctly different in its definition and section of code from junk and debris. So garbage is essentially garbage bags. We've had a few properties that have those issues where all it is garbage bags in the backyard or filling a shed. Junk and debris would be considered more objects that are in the yard. Could be scrap piles of wood, could be brush piles. That'd be probably more of a junk and debris. And because some of these things could be potentially items, couches or or such, I do believe from a staff perspective that junk and debris was a success to have SPW review those. But potentially, does garbage need to go to SPW? So with that, staff does potentially recommend amending section 320 to make exceptions for grass, garbage, and snow, to shorten the amount of time that it takes, as well as potentially there was issues last year with lawns. Sometimes residents don't call until lawns were a foot tall. And at that point, it would have to go through still the notice of violation, 3 citations. So you'd already have a lawn that's, a foot tall, and it might take another month and a half to actually deal with the issue. So trying to expedite that process as well, staff could look at language to try to write for that as well. Do you want me to go through all of these, Mike, or should we kind of stop at that one to have
I got a
discussion?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you talk about garbage, would you, see, I'm thinking of garbage and trash. Trash I would look at as more of your, anything that's throwaway, paper products, styrofoam stuff. Garbage I look at more of organic. Could we get that specific?
And garbage and trash, and there's another verbiage for it as well within our code. There's kind of 3 things with garbage.
Refuse?
Yeah, garbage and refuse, and I think it's well defined in there. Essentially paper products, plastic, as well as, organic materials.
Okay, okay.
Are you talking about going through every code change, or are you talking about every?
Yeah, do you guys have questions maybe on this first part, or should I go through everything?
I don't have any questions. I don't know if you guys do, but go ahead.
So far? Okay.
Okay.
So the next part of it that I kind of questioned is how are property maintenance issues such as siding and roofs corrected / cited if the building official does not believe the nuisance requires a court order for interior inspection or condemnation. So this could be maybe minor siding issues all the way to major siding issues, but the actual structure is intact. It's not slumping into the ground. There's not noticeable foundation issues. Same with roofs. It could be anywhere from some shingles missing, needing to be replaced, to more defects within the roof. How are these dealt with? We had attempted to reach out to the city attorney, and we could get more clarification as well of what we can do. Some of our past issues, we haven't been able, or there has been questions on what type of affidavit we need to get into those buildings to take a look at them. So with that, our standard enforcement schedule, the Safety and Public Works recommended this past year was to send $300 citations every 30 days until the issue was corrected. This essentially amounted to a similar citation schedules we had before. Instead of $100 citations every week, essentially we did $300 citations every month, so it roughly would equate to probably that $2,000 maximum on a house. So that one probably does need to be fine-tuned and potentially get some more information on that. And then also, concerned citizen did reach out to the Community Development Department regarding the removal of animal feces on properties. So right now the code currently requires removal within 48 hours. Staff does consider animal feces a health and public safety hazard. So just like garbage, if we have a yard that has a significant amount shown in the yard that we'd be able to abate immediately, that could within our current code be brought to Safety and Public Works after the first citation because it would be a public health and safety hazard. So with that, we do have the citizen that does have a concern about that. Certainly could let her speak.
Yeah, I would like to let you speak. I just want to go back to the last part we talked about, because I was wondering if we were going to get any more answers from our attorney regarding these, what was the entire process that we did handling the abatements? Because I know we had some issues with abatements right away. Those got smoothed out through using our attorney and finding out what was legal for us to do. Now, it sounds like we're kind of going through the same thing with properties that could possibly be condemnable. I don't know where we're at with that process right now.
So yeah, I would say not properties that are condemnable, but properties that I would say roofs are probably the main concern on some of those. If the tar paper is intact and is missing some shingles, not condemnable, are we able to get into a property to actually take a look at it? That's kind of the main question. Didn't have a chance to reach out to the attorney yet, but, based on potentially bringing recommendations back, that's something I could certainly discuss with him.
Right. there's issues that we can see on the outside, and we know how to properly.
Could be a
document
soffit
those.
missing,
Right. But
you
we've
know.
actually had some, I remember one in particular that was completely wide open on one side. And then I think something happened where the person was forced to leave town or something.
And that
happened
one,
where
we
they
have
were-
sent the information into the city attorney for, I believe, a recommendation of hopefully getting next steps for condemnation on that property.
Is that still open?
All of the debris has been removed from it. It was just a porch area that I think was open. It's not the whole house that was open.
People are, my concern is people are able to still get into that house. And I want to try to put a stop to that.
And
as soon
I'll
as we
clarify, that with our building official. A lot of times if we have concerns with the property where people can actually get into a house, we do board those up.
Okay. Okay. We're still working through that, but it looks like we do have somebody that wants to say a few words.
Yes.
Do you want to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, come on up, feel free. Just have to say your name and address before you start speaking. I don't know if that,
publicly don't have to say my address, I would appreciate it for safety concerns.
yeah, you can just say your neighborhood if that's okay.
My name is Tammy.
Is that on? Is the green light
It
on?
is on.
Okay.
Yeah, you want me to stand up?
No, it's working fine.
Okay, I guess my concern is, I have been dealing with a neighbor who, disgruntled at most, who has been there for about a year and a half, dealing with animal feces. Big dog, I say it's a miniature horse, sweet dog when she wants to be, but the animal feces has been a trouble. I personally, their backyard is connected to my yard because I'm on one side, they're on the opposite street, but we're on kitty corners. But because of the angle that they are, this whole last year, I spent not a minute in my backyard because all I could do was smell it. And it's a big dog. So when I went through my first communication in Brainerd being only here a few years, I contacted animal control because that was the only outlet I knew. That gentleman informed me that he would take care of it, and that just kind of fell on deaf ears because, I apologize, it wasn't you.
It's okay.
He told me that was something he could handle. I did not know that there was something more that the city could do about it. So when I went through and him and I's discussion was during the summer months, it is, from what I'm understanding, they have 72 hours. And in the winter months, they have up to a week. According to the ordinance that I have seen, I believe that's where it's at. Am I not correct on that one, James?
I can certainly review that before you're
Okay.
done talking.
Either way, I would prefer with large dogs, and I'm asking 24 hours. I have neighbors literally 2 houses down to my south, across the alley, and another across the alley. You wouldn't even know they had dogs. And some of them have 2 or 3. And this family has 1, and it's nothing but piles and piles. And it's like, I have asked them kindly, and I get called every name in the book and wrote nasty letters. And it's just kind of like, I'm at a point to where I think the ordinance needs to change because it's too much. I mean, a large dog, take care of your dog, 24 hours to me, get out there and clean it up. I don't have animals because I'm allergic to them, but I still see the understanding behind it. I mean, Luna is a kind dog when she wants to be, but she growls at me because I'm technically a stranger. But in the most part, it's like, I want to be able to enjoy my backyard, and I haven't been able to. So I would love for the fact that this ordinance change, and that personally, I know prior to we discussed that Mr. Animal Control Officer know his rules a little bit more to where us as people in the community, that he would pass it on and let us know where we could have went. If I would have known that there was more communication out there to be able to push this forward more, I would have definitely been doing that. But I was doing what I thought was right, and even though he sent back communication via text, which I have all of those, he started getting snippy because I was like, you're telling me you're gonna do it, but nothing's changing. And I don't know but what I was looking up, and he would reiterate it to me, and he would tell me, I can't make them pick it up. It's like, well, I get that, but isn't there a citation or something that can happen? And his words were, well, I'll take care of it. Well, now I'm hoping, with knowing where I've been going, that the ordinance would change. Because in my opinion, big dogs, 24 hours is all that needs, especially in the hot 80, 90-degree weather. My whole backyard all summer long, my neighbors would come over and they're like, what is that? My neighbors. And even though it's behind my garage, I smell it through my garage. My garage is not insulated, it's just a shack basically, but I can smell it all the time. And it just, at this point, I'm like, something's gotta change. So today, I came here tonight because I'm like, please, something's gotta change. I just need my neighbors to do their job and clean up their dog poo. But that's all I'm asking.
Great.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
I appreciate it.
This is the perfect time for us to discuss it. So,
Yeah,
James,
so I
if you
will
wanna say
clarify that. She is correct that it does state in our city code 72 hours from May 1st through October 31st, 1 week, November 1st through April 30th. I'm wondering, I was given some information. I wonder if it's different in our IPCM property maintenance code from our city code. That'd be potentially something to look at in the codification. That part's not as easy to look up in here, but our city code does state 72 hours and 1 week in the wintertime.
Okay. Any
So
comments?
if there's a complaint, you would notify the property owner, yeah, as soon as possible, I assume. So if you got a hold of them Tuesday morning, they got something in the mail, they would have until, what, Tuesday, sometime on Friday, it has to be abated.
So if we do get a complaint, we take a picture. If they are in violation, send that out immediately that day. It is based on the date of the letter being sent, so it's not based on when they receive it. So they'd have 10 days essentially to clean that up. After 10 days, we would review that property again, and then if it still is in non-compliance, it'd be a $100 citation. I would say during the summertime, when we're able to easily abate something, if this is something that Safety and Public Works would like to review, instead of having staff just abate it, we could bring it after one citation. If it's a continual problem, they do not get, within 1 year, they do not get a notice of violation and moves to immediate citation. So that does move a little bit faster. If Safety and Public Works would like, potential code language to have animal feces included with potentially the lawn mowing, garbage, and sidewalk snow removal as something that staff would do at a staff level and not have SPW review it, we could also take a look at that to expedite the process.
I would be in favor of that.
Yeah, I would, whatever speeds up the process the most. The problem with the dog feces that I could see coming up is if you have it written in there as 48 hours, or if you have it written in there as 72 hours, and somebody's gone for a weekend and they missed the last pile that Scruffy put out in the backyard, and they're gone for a few days, and then somebody tries to call them or stops by and the city goes ahead and abates it, then, they essentially got a violation and an abatement charge. Now, not everybody's as bad as this person's neighbor at maintaining what's going on, so I don't see that happening very often. But I do think maybe we speed that up. I don't think that abatement of dog feces should have to come here every time. That's going to make it take a lot longer, as well as grass, as well as the garbage stuff, as well as snow on the sidewalks. I think we're all on the same page with that. I think we still have some things to hammer out with as far as the condemnable maintenance issues. But I think we're moving closer to what we want to make changes. Now I'm just a little concerned about two different codes. So that would be for like a rental maintenance type of situation for the 72 hours in a week?
So that'd be the property maintenance code.
Okay,
So I will, if it is Safety and Public Works request to move towards a direction of bringing a draft ordinance, I will look whether or not those codes conflict or not. Whether the property maintenance code conflicts with what our city code says for hours. And that's really just the time that a citizen has for removal. That's not the notice of violation and citation process.
right.
But certainly we would want those to be consistent, and that could be potentially, if they are in conflict of one another, a reason why we need to do that potential codification of the code.
Right. And I think every time that, if there is a complaint such as this, I think that no matter how bad it is, unfortunately, I think as a city, we do have to give them a warning and say, we are going to abate the feces due to a complaint from a neighbor. And just at least give them a warning. But I think if you give them a day's warning, that's plenty of time. You know, it doesn't take 24 hours to clean up a yard unless, I mean, it would have to be pretty bad. So,
Okay, I guess, I think of like, kind of referencing what you said. If somebody, they leave on a Friday afternoon to go out of town or whatever, and they'll let the dog do its business in the yard and they take off for the weekend. And is this, I know the lady here didn't exactly say amount, but you're talking not just one time the dog goes and it's a problem. This is over several days, I assume, of not cleaning up after their animal, right?
you want to answer that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, so I apologize. I didn't mean to specify like right now. I've dealt with this neighbor that has repeatedly chose to never, ever pick up their dog
Okay.
feces. I'm not complaining when their dog goes out and goes and I'm saying, okay, I walked by that and now I have to smell it for a day. That's not what I'm getting at by any means. So I apologize for misunderstanding, if you misunderstood my words. If they take off for a weekend like you guys are saying, that's not what I'm complaining about. These neighbors have just refuse. And I mean, last winter, this spring, the whole backyard was nothing but, because all winter long, they never picked it up.
Okay, I just wanted to get, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, no,
Because
I wouldn't
my
complain over
concern is
something
when
that
we
smell
have-
like that.
It's very subjective. If a dog, I mean, if a dog goes and, they don't pick up that day, can somebody complain? That's what I'm afraid of happening. No, the dog did its business one time, and then the next thing you know, the neighbor's complaining because it got left out there overnight. It's very subjective. Where do we draw the line, say, for a complaint, You see,
James has an answer.
Yeah, and I think staff would certainly take that into account.
okay.
With the 72, I think the main thing with this property is certainly was a major issue. I
This
myself
property.
visited this with the code compliance inspector. When the snow melts, they've already received their notice of violation. So if there's a significant problem when the snow melts and it's out there, we'll go to immediate citation on this property. And then we can, in the meantime, potentially bring expedited language for Safety and Public Works to look at, to handle these issues faster as well.
I think in that case, if we refer back to what we're doing for grass, if it's over a foot long, we go ahead and just debate it without going through the 3 citations process.
Definitely.
You could do something similar to yards that are out of control with animal feces. I don't know how you define it, as well as doing a 12 inches of grass. That's pretty easy. But I think there's got to be a judgment call there where we don't wait, we just go ahead and take care of the issue.
And yeah, as part of the recommended motion would be for Safety and Public Works to have staff begin drafting up language for this ordinance, and then to also work with the city attorney on additional information on property maintenance issues.
how does it ever get to 12 inches? Why was that number, was that arbitrary number? I mean, I would think at 8 inches, it's a kind of tall already, isn't it?
So we do start sending at 8 inches, but right now we're on complaint based only. So we're not driving around looking for lawns anymore.
Okay.
So at times there'd be a complaint where the lawn's already 12 inches.
It's usually some property that's vacant,
Okay,
that just hasn't been maintained.
all right. So what are you looking for?
Yeah,
We're
are we able to move without a motion, or are you wanting a motion on something specific tonight?
We could probably move without a motion on this one.
Sounds like we
If
have-
there's a general consensus that you're interested in looking at expediting those 4 issues,
Yeah.
Animal feces, snow removal, garbage, and grass, staff will work in the next month here to bring revised language as well as get information from the city attorney on property maintenance issues.
Excellent. Good, okay. Great. All right, that does it for item 5. We'll move on to item 6, is the direction on active code enforcement cases. Go ahead, James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff is bringing 3 properties before committee for review. Staff is looking for direction from council as how to proceed with the cases. So the first property is 915 Laurel Street. This is a second abatement now. The first one had extensive mattresses, and a couple vehicles as well as a boat that were all abated on the property. It went through the citation process. So now they have, I guess, added other things to the property. One thing that was not abated originally because we could not see it were the oil barrels on the other side of the building. So that's something we were able to obtain pictures of, as well as there's now a hot tub on the property that's not functional. And then there's the unlicensed boat. So I'm going to wait for the recommendations because it's essentially the same recommendation for all three of these. But that's 915 Laurel Street. The next one is 609 11th Avenue Northeast. This is a junk and debris violation. It's kind of hard to see with the snow that's there, but it's essentially stuff that's kind of spilling out of the garage. It's household items, decor, bins, cabinets. There's a brush pile on there. So it's really just an issue with things that are getting overrun on the property here. And then the last one is 422 B Street. So currently there's junk and debris of various metal scraps, leftover building materials. There's an inoperable grill. This property also has an issue with I believe one unlicensed vehicle, potentially two. So with that, staff is recommending for all three properties of issuing a 10-day order to correct letter and begin working with the city attorney for abatement of the properties. Further, staff works with the abatement contractor to determine if abatement needs to wait until spring because of the snowfall totals on each property. And I can certainly answer any questions.
Seems pretty straightforward to me. Do you guys have any questions on these?
Yeah, real quick on the, waiting for the snowfall, is it possible then if they go in now, they'll miss stuff and have to return?
Certainly possible that they could miss stuff. The other thing we have to factor in is if they do miss stuff, then we'd have to obtain another warrant,
Right, okay.
which, it's best to only obtain one warrant for each property.
Can you remind us again, how long is each warrant good for? There's a
21 days.
21 days. So I think what we're directing here with this recommendation would be to have staff actually speak with the contractor who does our abatements to see if they're able to actually do it now, or if they would rather we wait until, say, the end of March. Well, hopefully by the end of March, there's less snow.
If we just approve your recommendation tonight, you'll let us know what you decide?
Yep, I can let you know what we decide in Safety and Public Works here, and then we'd go from there.
Recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second to move forward with staff recommendations, to work with the abatement contractor to determine if abatement needs to wait until spring because of snowfall totals, and also to order a 10-day order to correct letter and begin working with the city attorney for abatement of the property. Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. And we can adjourn.